Has anyone seen Collision this week yet, or not had a chance?
Nah, I've not seen it yet.
Get on.
I've seen a bit.
Just get bloody hell, the state of Danielson's chest. My God, got slapped raw off Kingston, beating 11. Piss out.
I've heard it's a bit of a brutal match. Like
it looks it as well. Have to catch up tomorrow.
All right, folks, and welcome to a very special edition of Mark's Side of the Ring. We're hoping some music to guide us in there, but as usual, the gremlins are out. Yeah, we were talking about Collision. I think that's pretty much all we've got to talk about this week, isn't it? It's just Collision.
I mean, yeah. When Ric Flair went full Ric Flair, but other than that,
yeah. Ric Flair went full Ric Flair. There was Collision, and that's literally it. And the matter of a certain return at Survivor Series.
Our truth.
Our truth.
What's up? What's up?
But no, I guess a massive chunk of our kind of the next hour or so is going to be dedicated to our thoughts on the return of one CM Punk. One of the things, obviously, people who watch the podcast regularly will know that we do our Wrestle Prophet. We make predictions for the shows, and it's not just about the results of the matches. There's usually kind of a 5-pointer in there. There's kind of a burning question going into the event. And to be perfectly honest, I was so adamant that it wasn't going to be the CM Punk wasn't going to be there. I almost didn't put it down as a question. I was thinking, it's probably not, I think that's all died a death. I think it's not going to happen. And I mean, to be fair, I'll eat my humble pie. I've never been so happy to be wrong. I was adamant that CM Punk wasn't turning up at Survivor Series last Saturday. Well, yeah, last Saturday. But there he was, and we were talking about how we found out before we went on air as well. And I think the majority of us probably had it spoiled for us before we watched the event. I mean, Kev, you had, Kev, didn't you? You said you'd see the picture, the now customary Punk and Triple H picture on social media before you'd had a chance to watch the show.
Yeah, I was trying to avoid it, but Pete was saying that was a picture. I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake. But I was thrilled, but I'm like, oh, I wanted to see it myself, but when they were pointing at each other, I'm like, that can't be doctored. It can't be Photoshop. That's real. And I'm like, oh.
Peter was saying that he subscribed to Fightful, so that he got an email first thing in the morning. I found out at about 5 o'clock in the morning. I got up to go to the toilet and stupidly picked up my phone and was scrolling on Facebook. So that's how I found out. I mean, was it a surprise for either of you guys, David and Robbie? Were you watching the show, or were you aware going in that it had happened?
No, I watched it. I stayed off all social media, everything. Watched the show, and then that trademark come up in the corner. And I was like, that's it. Got the 5 points, and then his music hit. It almost felt like it switched to one of them, TikTok videos where they're editing with Roman Reigns and CM Punk's music hit. For a split second, I thought that's what it switched to. I just couldn't believe it. I was so happy.
I was what?
I managed to steal and actually watch live, but I only managed to steal for an hour and a half. So I got to the Miz. Then it's going to match, what's that? And then I thought, nah, that's enough. I've got to go to bed. And then woke up the next morning, and there it is on the Facebook. Still happy though.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Kev?
I was going to say, I could imagine if Vince was running, CM Punk's music would come on and you see fucking Hornswoggle walk out just to CM Punk. That's why I was saying, people wouldn't believe it until they saw him, because that has been done before, when the Miz come out and stuff, and when out with with that little fellow was Bret Hart and stuff. So I was like, I'll not believe it until I see him.
Yeah. And I think we'll talk so much more about this kind of over the time that we've got. I think there's loads for us to get stuck into. Peter tells me he doesn't require the news music today; that he's going to do something a little bit different. So I'm going to hand over to Peter and see what he's got in store for us.
Right, if you just bear with 1 second, can anyone still hear me? Because I think my headphones have gone a bit skew with.
Yeah, I can hear
I
you.
can hear you.
Right, that's all right.
Yeah, yeah.
So hang on a minute. This is going to be weird. So bear with us 1 second, guys. That one. Oh, bollocks. Gremlins at this end too. It's my bad.
It happens. It happens.
Just my headphones seem to have packed in for no reason. Right then. So I'll get going. So Mike, Robbie, Kev, David. While you sit there, hopefully as uncomfortable as possible, there's a lot of things I want to get off my chest. This is episode 10 of Mark's Side of the Ring. But why this name? And despite the obvious play on the words on the Vice TV show Dark Side of the Ring, it describes the space we occupy. We're not behind the curtain, nor do we have sources there. We're not wrestlers, and we're not or have not been active in the ring. We're on the other side of the guardrail, the Mark side of the ring, if you will. And as Mike says at the start of the show each week, this is a professional wrestling podcast by wrestling fans and for wrestling fans. But why are we professional wrestling fans? What is it that makes us tune in every week, that makes us exchange fantasy booking ideas in group chats and amongst friends, that makes us start podcasts? It's a feeling. The feeling of being drawn in and encapsulated by the larger-than-life characters of a Hogan, a Warrior, Savage, Sting, Rock, Austin, Cena, and then becoming enchanted by the storytelling of a Bret Hart, a Mick Foley, a Ric Flair, a Bryan Danielson, Kurt Angle, Guerrero, or even a Kenny Omega. The feeling when the Sting and entrance music hits and there's no choice but to roar your support for the performer coming through the curtain. That feeling, that 2.99 kick out when the story is being crafted so perfectly that you jump out of your chair in shock. The feeling when your guy gets that win against the odds and holds up the championship aloft, validation for that performer's hard work and talent and the reward for a story well told. The feeling of seeing someone return from a career-threatening injury against the odds. It's a feeling. For the past 9 episodes, you've took the time to share those feelings with us, and here on episode 10 from myself, Mike, Robbie and David, thank you for your support so far, and thank you for making this fun. So this week, there's no news, no repartee, no jokes from me. Just a heartfelt and genuine thank you to anyone and everyone that has listened or watched so far. As intros go, that may not be the best in the world, but this week, our subject very well may be. This is Mark's Side of the Ring, and this is our roundtable discussion on CM Punk.
Lovely way to kick it off. Lovely way to kick it off. And I think it's going to be. We've talked about this a little bit. With CM Punk's not someone who's really massively come up so far. I think that he's kind of been a bit of an elephant in the room on our show. We've always known that we were going to have a conversation about him at some point. And that something is going to happen, whenever he's around. We've just talked about kind of how I was finding out the news a week ago that he'd returned to WWE. And it was very much like a pigs will fly kind of moment, cold day in hell, all of those kinds of things. I mean, if we have a look at the Wrestle Prophet stuff, I'm not going to bring up the screen now because we're going to talk about the question that we kind of asked last week. Is CM Punk going to return at Survivor Series? And more have said no than yes. So I don't think it was. It is something we were split on, and I think it is something that people were talking about. But certainly, David said no. Peter and Kev said yes. I remember, David, you were saying like you were kind of thinking with your head rather than your heart, and I would say that I was probably the same way. But as I said before, I was categorically like, there's no way this is happening. And that ties in with what you were saying, Peter. That's the magic of wrestling, isn't it? There's no other form of entertainment like it that can, for me anyway, that can create that kind of emotion and that kind of moment.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. I think when, obviously, I said a lot of it was, for some of us, it was kind of spoiled the return a little bit beforehand that he came back. But it didn't make it feel any less kind of special or rewarding when it happened. It was just, like, you see the camera kind of pan out and you get the shot of the arena, and then you've got the static and then the music, and you're just there and you're just smiling, and it's a real feel good moment. And we'll get into all the discourse and various things about that, but for that moment in time, it was just a real nice feeling to kind of see, and it's something you don't really get anywhere else. Certainly for me, that I get from pro wrestling nowhere else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think,
moment.
even, like obviously TV shows, there's often like a twist or things like that. But I think just because of the way that wrestling sort of blurs this line between reality and kind of fiction, creative, whatever you want to call it, it means that they can straddle that line really, really nicely and just create these like amazing moments. It's, you wouldn't get that in sport. It's not going to be this big thing and this will show you how my knowledge of football with the example I use, but you're not going to use, say, like David Beckham walking on the pitch at the end of a match and everyone being like, holy shit, it's David Beckham. It's not how it works. Do you know what I mean? Like, it really isn't. Like, whereas with wrestling, it is, and that's what's really exciting about it. I mean, Robert, you seem to be the one that, obviously David fell asleep. The rest of us were kind of caught by social media. What was that moment like for you? Like David says, when the camera pans back, that trademark Triple H credits tag comes up. So you think, yeah, we're done. And then it happens. What was that moment like?
A loud gasp.
Mm-hmm.
Jaw hit the floor. You know what it is? It's similar to what Peter said. It made us feel like I was a kid again. Got that big surprise. I'm a 35-year-old. Really, wrestling shouldn't really be surprising us by now.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, me jaw just hit the fucking floor. Beck's next to us, just staring at us. She was like, "How did you not think he was going to come back?" I was like, "Just with everything that's happened, he left on bad terms. He got sacked on his wedding day. It just felt like it was never gonna happen. And then when it did, like I said, I just felt like a fucking 10-year-old again. Shocked. I'm still shocked now that he's actually back, and it's been a week, and I still can't believe it.
And it's funny, like after the last week, I'll probably talk about this more as we go on. It's been a bit of in terms of like my thoughts about everything that's happened in the run up to it. My opinions started to sway around quite a bit and kind of really reflect on this massive journey that he's been on. Obviously, it's like Peter said, we're not insiders, we're wrestling fans. None of us, to my knowledge, have met CM Punk. Like, so, we don't know the life he leads or has led, but like, I've just been reflecting on it, just the more that comes out. And I just think it's a really interesting journey he's been on. And I feel the truth is always somewhere in the middle of everything that we hear. It's never really one or the other. I mean, David, I know obviously you're a massive Punk fan. I think me and you were probably the only CM Punk fans in Wembley back in August, certainly in our section. I mean, what do you think in terms of his return? Because I think there's been a lot of controversy. There's been a lot of mixed feelings, let's say, about him returning to WWE. I mean, what are your thoughts on all of that?
Even though I've seen that he was coming back, I've seen the pictures, I still ended up with goosebumps, which I thought, wow, that's what wrestling needs to be, and that's what it needs to give you. And then, but I thought Seth did a fantastic job of being so angry at the fact he was there, because everybody believes that was not a work, but WWE, you never know what to believe. So,
and this is what I talk about that blurring of kind of sort of fact and fiction, if you like, and real life and storyline and all this kind of stuff that wrestling can bring us. That it's like, if you think about Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes have kind of openly said in interviews and stuff that they're not on the same wavelength. They don't necessarily get on. They both want to be that number one person on Raw, to be in that position. So but they're able to kind of paint a story out of that. It kind of blends that kind of, like I said, blends that fantasy and fact together. And I think this was a really good example of that. That it wasn't just when you went on social media. It wasn't just you were seeing CM Punk walk through the curtain. You weren't just seeing that picture of him with Triple H. You you were seeing that video footage of Seth Rollins being held back by the world's strongest man, Michael Cole, or you would, or the one that got me actually, because I thought to myself, that feels like, not in a cynical way, I thought it was cool, but I was like, they're probably leading into something there. What fascinated me was the whole Drew McIntyre thing. That he rolled out of the ring, and if I watched the video that I watched correctly, he stormed out of the ring before Punk's music even came on. So he was clearly unhappy about something. Then you hear that perhaps the guys were told ahead of time that Punk was going to come out. So was it related to that? So all of a sudden, within minutes of the guy returning, it's all that mystery and intrigue and controversy that he brings, which is just so much fun for a product. I mean, what did you think, Kev, as you were kind of going through social media, like the stuff like the Drew McIntyre stuff and the Seth Rollins stuff? I mean, how did you feel about it all?
Yeah, I think if the Seth Rollins thing, if that's purely a work, it's amazing. Like his like anger off and everything, it's moving WWE into a more like attitude era style. Because watching that, like he was like, he better stay the fuck away from me. That was his words he was saying, and I think I like Rhea Ripley. Did you see what Rhea Ripley did as well with the whole clubbing time? She was going, and then she flipped him off as well. That was amazing. But so apparently, majority of the people backstage like really loved him being there. So one or the other, but really interesting when he's on SmackDown how he clashes with LA Knight. Fans will then become CM Punk fans because that's going to be a big clash with them too. So
that's really interesting because So for me, I was thinking about kind of the pecking order, if you like, of WWE now he's come back, and it's like obviously a lot of the reasons that he left were, he wanted that WrestleMania main event. Like, he went on, quite frankly, like I thought he went on a great WWE title run. You know what I mean? Like where he obviously kind of broke records and had amazing matches and this, that, and the other, but he was never really like the main event. Like that's when Rock and Cena were doing their thing, and obviously they were kind of overshadowing him. And like, to be fair, that would probably piss me off too. Like if you're a guy with ambition and you want to do well in your career, of course that's going to piss you off, but I feel like now he's back now, surely part of those negotiations will be, well, yeah, I'm going to be on my best behavior, but I want the opportunities afforded to me that never came. I want that WrestleMania main event. So for me, when you talk about LA Knight, I think that's going to be really interesting, because if you'd asked me 2 weeks ago who's going to win the Royal Rumble, my answer would have been LA Knight. Now I'm not so sure. And that makes me wonder. And I know that maybe they're on, CM Punk at the moment, he's not on a particular brand exclusively. I imagine feels like he'll end up on Raw. And I think that's a really good move. But I still think, in terms of like Knight moving over to Raw at some point, because I didn't think that he was the guy to take Roman down. So it just creates all this stuff that if I am a Drew McIntyre, if I'm an LA Knight, not so much Gunter, because I feel that a Gunter CM Punk match would be phenomenal, and I think that could be done quite nicely. I think all the others would, but I think particularly if you're LA Knight and Drew McIntyre, maybe I'm a little bit worried about my trajectory now. Someone like CM Punk's back. What do you think, Peter?
I think the interesting thing about Drew is obviously his contract's coming up pretty soon. That's been fairly widely reported that sometime just after Mania, his contract's expired, and as it stands now, there's no agreement of a new one in place. Obviously, differences in cash or creative, what it kind of boils down to. So, and apparently he's got broader issues with WWE as a whole. But I would imagine Drew might be one of those ones that feels it, because maybe he's stalled a little bit, but this everyone, if somebody else catches fire and it's something new and it's different, no one's entitled to anything, despite how much they kind of hard work. And you look at how many people who've caught fire this year. Sammy caught fire, was red hot. KO was still red hot. Jey Uso, my God, if anyone ever suggested he would be as over as he is, no one would have believed in that shot at WarGames on the cage, doing the kind of hand wave, and you just got that shot at the crowd. So it seems to be a little bit more merit based now. So if LA Knight still keeps doing his thing, then there's no reason. I don't think he was, for me personally, I don't think he was prime for a world title run just yet. So I think he might be all right for now. I think him and Logan Paul are destined for WrestleMania. And Damian Priest, it's interesting. Who are just, I would say, about to kind of creep title picture. What does it mean for Finn? Maybe he's a chance into the. Or so Raw, Cody on SmackDown, and Roman can go and do whatever he's been doing this year, but he can do it for the whole year and have a break. Raw, you've got Cody anchoring SmackDown with Punk and Rollins and Jey Uso and Gunther. So, I think that's how that'll pan out.
And
I just want to
you
say
say something, Kev.
Yeah, but with Drew McIntyre, I think with him, his championship reign, he never drew a single penny because he couldn't. It was during lockdown, like it was during the pandemic. So I think he's got a point to prove that he wants to. Like he won the WWE title and not a single person cheered for him. Like when he was defending the title, he didn't have anybody to cheer for him. And I can imagine that would be a psychological thing there. Yeah, I was WWE champion, but in front of absolutely nobody. And I think he'd want a title reign to prove that he can be a champion in front of everyone, like in front of a crowd. Because, I mean, it's all about drawing money when you're a champion, and like the fact that he wouldn't have drawn a single penny when he was champion, it would weigh heavy on your mind if that's your profession, like as a champion. That's what I think, anyway.
And I almost think, like, I mean, Cody's done like amazing since he's come back and stuff, but it's almost like I call that like the Drew McIntyre blueprint. Like he's the one that almost have invented that. I mean, fair enough, he didn't become an EVP of a new wrestling company, but Drew like went out and was like, right, I'm going to show you what you're missing out on. I'm going to do all these indies. I'm going to build my character. I'm going to become this huge star, and then you're going to beg for me to come back. And obviously Cody's done the same. Like that's almost a template now that people. Cardona's doing that now. Do you know what I mean? Like there's that's almost a blueprint. So I get it. Like for me, I would love to see, I would love to have been Clash at the Castle. To be honest, I would love to have seen Drew win in front of people like us. It's a Clash at the Castle, but it just wasn't to be, unfortunately. So I hope that he does get his due. I know we're kind of moving away from Punk a little bit, but I hope he does get his due. And again, talking about feuds, like I think the Drew McIntyre CM Punk match could be really good. I think there's loads of possibilities. And listening to Peter there talking about like you have Cody anchoring Smack, Punk anchoring Raw, and then all these big names. Like in terms of the main event scene, like arguably it's never been. It's certainly not been this deep since the Attitude Era, I would argue. Maybe even ever. I mean, what do you think, David? Do you think obviously they're clearly they're doing something right with building stars this year particularly?
Kind of superstars. Back to superstars like you see it in the Attitude Era, and there's Attitude Era. You had Stone Cold, you had The Rock, you had The Undertaker, you had Triple H, Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart. You had all big names, and now you've had big names, but you've also had ones who are definite mid-carders, and then bringing Punk back in, and Randy Orton coming back as well. Randy Orton looked amazing when he came out. He looked professional. He is the blueprint of a professional wrestler. And I just, like I said, I worry for the people that think they're just about there, because once they've come in, they've dropped down just slightly.
Yeah, definitely. And so I guess for us, a lot of what we're talking about, it's all kind of sort of roses and unicorns at the minute about kind of how great WWE is doing, this, and that's great because it's wrestling. We're wrestling fans. We want to be excited. That's awesome. Obviously, a lot of what comes along with Punk is that controversy. It's that kind of just kind of from his AEW days, kind of sort of behind the scenes controversy. Like, yes, Punk left WWE on bad terms, but it doesn't sound like there was a punching match on the way out. Like it was just very ugly, one of the ugliest kind of splits in WWE history. Then, of course, was all the stuff that may or may not have happened in AEW. And obviously, I watched a really funny clip of someone asking Tony Khan about how he felt about Punk being back, and then just obviously not legally not able to answer that question. So, short of us seeing security footage from Wembley or kind of ever seeing someone who was there, we'll never truly know kind of what happened in AEW. Robbie, do you think it's a risk bringing Punk in? Do you think that he is someone who could stir things up, or do you think that maybe some of the stories we've heard, again, there's two sides to every story, isn't there?
Yeah, it is a risk, obviously going off what happened last time and what happened in AEW. But from what I've read, I think there's a behavior clause in his contract, which I'm assuming is you either get in line or you're gone. Punk said he's changed. He only left AEW a few months ago. So I don't know how much he's changed. But what I've also noticed, because I've been flicking through CM Punk clips on YouTube, there was a Summer of Punk in Ring of Honor.
Yeah.
There was a Summer of Punk in WWE. I think this year it was around the summer. So ask me again next summer. And we'll see where we are. It seems to be like he wants the summer off, so he stirs up a bit of shit. Overall, I think it's good for WWE. And anybody who's complaining is like the others have said, they're worried about the spot. If you were number 2, you're now probably number 3, and it goes down. Seth, I do believe they don't like each other.
Yeah.
But the WWE also trying to bring kayfabe back.
But then I think I listened to, to be fair, to give it a parallel example, which is a little bit strange. Obviously, I was listening to one of the old Bruce Pritchard podcasts a few days ago, and it was all about the Edge Matt Hardy Lita situation, and that it was like, even though these two guys hated each other, they were professional enough that they could work together and do so safely. At least for a while, Brett and Shawn Michaels could say the same. Do you know what I mean? Obviously things kind of went off the wayside there, but I think as long as people, as long as both of them are willing to work with each other, like you say, then you can blur those lines like you could with HBK and Bret Hart. And I think that was part of the thing in AEW that I think that Punk felt that Hangman particularly was with, and I think that was part of his gripe by the sounds of things.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know Rollins was on the Logan Paul podcast, and he said they were talking about the Cody Rhodes situation, and he's turned around and said, "He went, look, I'm a professional.
Mm-hmm.
If it's gonna make money, which it will, that Seth Rollins CM Punk can main event any pay-per-view, and I'd pay to watch it. It would be, I think, it'd be a fucking brilliant match."
Yeah. No, I think it would. And I think as well, it's that idea, if I think of, I've been in jobs we absolutely couldn't stand people that I worked with, but you just have to get on with it. You're getting paid.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, you're on this, you're on this department with this person, or you're working in this office with this person. Well, I'm not working with them. It's like, well, tough shit. That's the job. So there is an element of what Rollins is saying, that it's like, well, yeah, I don't have to like these people, but I'll work with them because I'm a professional and that's what I do.
But this is the beauty with WWE and it's what I think is the difference between WWE and AEW. WWE will tell you to do your job, get on with it. Where Tony Khan's like, oh, okay then, as long as you're still going to be my friend, you can do whatever you want. It's just, I'm sorry, I had this conversation with Bex earlier. Do I think Tony Khan's up for the job? No. The whole CM Punk situation kind of confirmed that for me.
Well, it's really interesting we're talking about that, because this is where I guess my thoughts on everything start to change. Because again, obviously things come out and we read them, and obviously we have our opinions. Do we believe that? Do we not? Naturally, you take sides, that kind of thing. It's what we do, and I think that it was very much like, even after kind of Brawl Out and all the stuff that Punk was fired. Tony Khan comes out and said he was fearful for his life, all of this kind of stuff. And you think to yourself, right, okay, so he's got some balls then. He's sacked him because this is what we're saying, that, you know, perhaps this is maybe something he's not so good at, you know, but that he's kind of drawn a bit of a line and said, yeah, I've done this, I've terminated him. Because he's trouble, because, you know, he's trouble in the locker room, X, Y, and Z. But then you think to yourself, well, then you hear all these accounts of other people, you know, that say, now have Punk CM Punk, you know, Sonny Kiss coming out and saying, like, oh, well, actually, what pronoun should I use? You know, some of the younger people talking about the way that he kind of worked with them and kind of, you know, to kind of better them. You know, I haven't heard MJF come out with anything particularly bad about Punk, you know, and they had quite an extensive feud. Probably the highlight of Punk's AEW run, I'd say, the stuff he was doing with MJF. So then I think to myself, it's like, yeah, we can all get pissed off in a workplace. You know, we can all have arguments with people. We can all this, that, and the other. You know, if you read Daniel Bryan's book, he talks about how he was up in Triple H's face one time. Like, and Daniel Bryan seems like a really placid guy. So it happens to everybody. But then I just think to myself, how much of it is controversial CM Punk, and how much of it is, as you say, the backstage environment, the EVPs, the managerial. How much of that has actually contributed to what we've heard over the past kind of year and a half?
I think with the wrestling, wrestling's you see about like working environments with wrestling. I know from my little experience I've got, like in a locker room with wrestling, when you start, you shake everybody's hand when you walk in, and let's say that is the code. You go up to everyone and shake their hands, and like doesn't matter what like where you are in the pecking order. And if you don't do that, you're considered like rude and like no one will talk to you. So I think it might have come across as a bit standoffish though. But from what I've saw and I've experienced, I mean, when I used to go to training, like the first day, the guy who was a wrestler was like, "Oh, make sure you go and shake everyone's hand and say hello, because that's the code to go by." And even if someone really pisses you off and you hate them, you still shake their hand as soon as you go in. And it's I don't know, because I can't imagine, like, Punk lives and breathes wrestling, and I can't imagine him not doing that, like following that ethos and that code. So I can imagine the stories are a bit far fetched about him being like, he might just have his own opinion. And with him being quite high up in the ranking, that might piss some people off. But I can't imagine him being. But he's a safe worker as well. Everyone says he's like sound in the ring. There's no one's ever had an issue with him. But that's my opinion anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I guess as we're talking about it, and this is something I've been really thinking about over the last week. I'll throw it at all of you really, but I'll start with Peter. How much of an own goal do you think this is for AEW?
It's big because I don't think the issue with CM Punk, and a lot of the big hoo-has were it all kind of kicked off with about the workers' rights, and people were raving about him, younger talent, some of the veteran talent that were there, some of the veteran talent that clearly had worked with Punk in the past as well. Actually looked this up for the specific purpose for the part today. Time Cole Cabana was on AEW TV. On TV from January 21 up until he was on a couple of times after that, and then he wasn't on Elevation. But that doesn't really count. On TV, he wasn't there. So for Cabana's absence to be doesn't really seem fair. Especially, I don't want him here. And if Tony Khan's have to keep them separate to not stir the pot, hell a lot of room that. Controversy as well. I think the press conference brought out again. I watched the media scrum again. It did. I think a lot of what he said was right. And that bit was very unprofessional. Nope. Stopping that. From AEW to the media scrums now in WWE, sat there and he's in a hoodie. Triple H comes out and he's in a suit. There's a difference in optics. There's a difference in how. Do you want to be? Are you the boss or do you want to be one of the boys? Right. There's little tales of the boys becoming the booker and because of the politics. There's talk about Punk making decisions on Collision and this, that, and the other. If Tony's told Punk, I want you to run the show. It's your show. You're in charge. Do it how you see fit. Make it feel how you want to make it feel. But then Tony's calling the shots while he's over there. And then it's like, well, like any one of us having like, the manager goes off site and goes, by the way, while I'm away, I want you to run the shop for us. Run the show for us. Take control of it. Oh. But he doesn't tell everybody else that you're now in charge of. The fuck are you? It's like that. So if he's been given that, it's going to be your baby in a sense. The sit down should have been happened with him and the Bucks and Kenny. It didn't. It got nixed. Punk's not allowed on Dynamite, but then Punk can't tell anybody. There's just been an awful throughout the board. And I think a lot of it's come from people who are faithful for their spotting. Saying no names. Chris Jericho. Cough. But that's kind of what it seems like. You hear all the people that have spoken and praised him. It's a lot of the younger talent. There's more people come out and praise them even now than people who've actually, you know, and a lot of it's AEW's own doing because haven't managed the talent the way it should have been.
I mean, what do you think, Kev? I think a lot of what Peter says makes a lot of sense. I think, you know, it's, and I mean, to be fair, I'm not a manager of any kind. Like, what an awful situation after trying to juggle. But you've got wrestlers who, you know, like Vince McMahon's been dealing with this kind of nonsense for decades. You know what I mean? There's a point, like you say, where there just has to be like, right, I don't care if you're the one that's drawn us money. I don't care if you've got 3 letters after your name. You're going to do as I say because I'm the boss, and that's how it goes. And I wonder if maybe kind of a bit of a firmer hand from Tony maybe Punk might have stuck around a bit longer.
I think basically Tony Khan needs to take a step aside or move up and get someone in who is just ruthless. He's not any of the wrestlers' friends. He's just like Vincent McMahon. He's just a tough son of a bitch. He'll just say, right, this is what's happening. It's good for this is what's best for the business. I've got authorization from Tony. I'm doing this. Like, Tony says I can do this. I'm not your friends. I don't care who you are. It's best for business. And I think it'd be better off like that. And then he's like, he can still be like the president and owner, but then he's got someone delegating that for him, who'll make the tough decisions for him, and then he's not worried that he's going to like hurt any of the wrestlers' feelings. He's got someone who's ruthless who can make those tough decisions and also like make the good decisions as well. But I think that's why Vince was so popular, because he is ruthless and he was able to make them decisions years ago. And like a lot of wrestlers said, I mean, he's got a handful of like Undertaker and Hulk Hogan and that, but the majority of them, like a lot of them, despise Vince, but he made them money. And I think it depends how AEW take this CM Punk signing. If they capitalise on the young talent and push them further, because When I first saw AEW start, I thought they're going to make the same mistakes as WCW. Everyone wants to go there to be a champion, and there's only so many titles you can invent and make. If everyone say, "Right, I want AEW because I want to be champion, I want to be the top man on the card," it's not going to happen. You're going to end up with like a card of like 40 people all wanting to be champion, and then they'll get creative control. It'll be WCW again with like Nash and Hall and that when they could control and not dropping titles and that. So needs to nip it in the bud now, I think. Do something about it right now while it's still in its infancy, while it's still on top.
Do any of us think that? Because again, one of the things that I did watch in preparation for this was Punk coming back at the first dance. You know what I mean? Obviously, he hadn't even been advertised, and he sold out a stadium in Chicago, an arena in Chicago. Obviously, an amazing moment, absolutely phenomenal. And then, obviously, at least for the first year, it was a great run. Like I really enjoyed CM Punk in AEW. I even enjoyed his return as well. You know, do you think that kind of the way he's gone out, do you think that sours his AEW run at all, or do you think that we can still look back on those great memories he's made with the likes of MJF and others?
Nah, I don't think it has, simply for the matches he's had.
Yeah.
I mean, this could have all been avoided had Tony Khan just shut that media scrum down. Yeah, again, I was watching it with Bex and I was like, should have shut it down there. Shouldn't have let it get this far. He's just sat there nodding along, apologizing for no commenting a reporter. And I went, can you imagine Vince doing that? He'd be like, right, that's it. Enough. You're finished. Gone.
Yeah.
And then all that could have been avoided. I can't help but lay most of the blame at Tony Khan's feet, if I'm being honest, because he's an owner, or is he just someone who started a wrestling company to be friends with wrestlers? Because that's what it seems like. And I shared a picture in the group podcast group the other day of him hugging his talent like a fucking 10-year-old child. Like it's how I'd expect your little boys to hug a wrestler when they've just met him, not a fucking grown man.
Mike when he sees Trish next year.
Yeah. I was going to make a similar comment.
Avoiding the pepper spray.
It's just since this whole CM Punk thing, he's gone down in my estimation. He's got no backbone. He cannot manage this fucking company. To me, the company's getting worse. And I'll have to say it's kind of since CM Punk's left. You know, they drew the first £1 million house with CM Punk. I don't know if they've done it since while he's not been there. And this whole thing of being asked, well, yeah, but that was Wembley. I mean, CM Punk was still there. But this whole question of being asked what he feels about CM Punk WWE, the NDA is for what happened at Wembley, not his opinion on him joining WWE. Again, it's just a coward's fucking answer. Answer the fucking question. That's what we want to know. It's just fucking pissing me off at the minute, like Tony Khan. It's everything he does. He's winding us up.
Do you think? Because obviously, we just before we started, we were talking about Collision, and you know, it says I watched it, and I've seen some of it. I intend to watch the rest either later tonight or tomorrow. And one of the things that's really got us about it is like similar to when Punk was, because it lost its way quite a bit once Punk was let go. You know, but this show felt really tight. Obviously, they're doing the Continental Classic, so they've got kind of matches to put into it, and it just felt like what I've seen so far, like a really action-packed night of wrestling. You know what I mean? Like without the sports entertainment part of it that they seem to say that they loathe, but still throw in there. Like, do you think that is a reaction, perhaps, to like, right, well, Punk's back in WWE, so let's let's steer the ship in that direction. Like, do you think that we'll see a change from AEW in reaction to the fact that Punk is on the other channel, even though it sounds like he's probably not gonna bash them because, like you say, because of NDAs and all this kind of stuff. It sounds like he maybe just wants to get on with things.
It's one of the reasons why QT Marshall has left. Because they're going that route where he's more into storytelling. And I mean, I like a good story to go with a feud. I can't just watch two bloods shot together. It's kind of probably why I fell off Collision for a bit, because there was just, to me, nothing to want me to watch it. At least Dynamite, they've got a little bit of storylines here and there chucked in. But I know apparently Tony Khan's a fan of just wrestling. He's a fan of New Japan. I kind of the way he's going, I think. Good matches. It's just I like a bit of a story.
I'm thinking about CM Punk and AEW before. I think it might be cool to maybe go back a little bit and talk about like some of his moments from his, well, not just WWE and Ring of Honor. We can probably go into some AEW ones too. But I guess if we think about All In, and obviously the story building up of that, you know, that there'd been a collision. I think it'd been a collision where Jack Perry had been on, wanted to use real glass in a spot. Punk had a bit of a word with him. There'd been a bit of argy-bargy. Get to Wembley. It's now the pre-show. And to be fair, like the spot felt a bit unnecessary for the pre-show, I might add, but that's another thing entirely. But obviously, Hook and Jack Perry did this spot on the hood of a car. Comes to the camera. Real glass. Real glass. Cry Me a River. So then there's this altercation backstage that apparently like Samoa Joe's involved trying to separate them, and Tony Khan's fearing for his life and all of this kind of stuff. Yeah. And again, this is total like opinion. Who's in the wrong there? Like if that is, you know, if that was, you know, because that was clearly aimed at Punk on TV, you know, he's calling him out. You know, surely back in the day, like we talk about the Attitude Era and the New Generation Era and all this, that, and the other. Like, if that was The Undertaker, if you called out The Undertaker in 1998, he'd probably slap your chops for you. Do you know what I mean? And Vince would have been like, yeah, all right.
Yeah.
You've learned your lesson, let it go. Whereas now this became, and I get the world's changed, but, you know, like this was a much different, been like, in my eyes, in terms of like, I'm not condoning what Punk did, but in my eyes, like Jack Perry's got to be to blame for that, for holding this grudge and kind of displaying it for the world to see. And to be fair, in the time since that match, we haven't seen him since. You know, we've seen Punk. We haven't seen Jack Perry. I mean, what do you think, Kev?
Well, I don't understand why you want to use real glass. I mean, it's. I'm not going to say fake because it's not fake. The match is predetermined, but they put the bodies through so much shit. Why would he want to use real fucking glass and try and maim his opponent? I mean, one false move and you slash an artery and you're dead. I don't understand why he insists on real glass. It's like, it looks the same and you can do, like, has he got a point to prove or something? I just can't understand the logic and like, oh, it's got to be real glass because I need to do this. It's like, there's no need. You're not really trying to kill him. The match is booked. We know who's going over. Just,
I feel like if it had been me and like, I don't know, if it's Tony Khan or the producer of the match or whoever, it was like, right, you're going to face Taz's son, right? And, you know, there's going to be a spot involving the windscreen of a car, but we can put some sugar glass in there for if you want. I'd be like, please, that would be lovely, because I'm going to be in a lot of pain when that match is over, because I'm wrestling Hook. Like, so, because I've got a lot of time for Hook. I think he's awesome, but I bet it's a hard hitting match. Do you know what I mean? You're going to feel it when you, I don't understand, you know, like even Mick Foley talks about kind of not shortcuts, but things that he might do to kind of make, you know, to make something look a lot grislier than it was. And I think in this, you know, yeah, I do question, and I think Punk was probably saying the same. He was probably like, you're young, you don't need to use real glass. Like, what's that about? And it's just been taken in this really cocky way that's, again, it just made everything implode all over again. Just when, you know, things were starting to maybe smooth over a little bit. I mean, how do you feel, David? Like, I mean, obviously we were there. We watched the match. What did you think? Like, do you think that Jack Perry's to blame for kind of the end of this story, or do you think Punk maybe went a bit too far in his reaction to that?
I blame Jack Perry, definitely.
Episode 10, I blame Jack Perry.
What I heard was that Punk, Perry actually got told, go and see CM Punk, and he'll give you some advice. And he gave him the advice, don't use real glass, and he did anyway. And then when he went back, he's got in. This is what I've heard anyway. He got into Punk's face, so Punk put him in a chokehold, and then they got separated. And I blame Jack Perry the whole way. So, but
yeah,
is one of Tony's boys or one of the EVP's boys? I don't know.
It's interesting. He's not back yet, though. Very interesting, I'd say, because we're talking like 4 months now. You know, it seems that when Tony Khan does hand out these suspensions, that they're for a while.
Well, it's not Tony handing the suspensions out, is it?
No.
Well, this is what we've learned.
Daniel Bryan.
Yeah, which is really interesting. That's definitely something we'll get onto at some point, if not today, certainly not. It's really interesting. When we're talking about, you know, Tony and kind of his position and where Bryan Danielson sits in that is fascinating. Actually, we could probably do a whole podcast on that. But let's back a little bit into let's just kind of talk about Punk's career, because I think it's exciting to think about kind of what's to come. You know, there's all this controversy in the middle. We haven't even touched on the WWE stuff of him leaving, and I think, you know, you'd said, Robbie, as well, about like him getting fired on his wedding day and all this. Even we've barely touched the surface on that. But in terms of like his career in this, obviously Ring of Honor, WWE, AEW, you know, a bit of a pit stop in TNA. You know, he's done a lot of stuff in his time. What are people's first? Let's start with Peter. What's your first memory of CM Punk? Is it from his ECW days, or were you kind of watching him earlier than that?
No, I'd heard of CM Punk through magazines. There was a period of time mid to late 2000s where I didn't have Sky, so couldn't watch it. So I kind of kept up to date with magazines. First time I really saw Punk properly was 2009 and his feud with Jeff Hardy, and I thought it was brilliant. You know, I was a big Jeff Hardy fan, and you know, and obviously we'd just seen him kind of get his shit together basically, and really starting to get the fruits of that. But he had such a polar opposite in Punk, and two different ideologies. You know, they say styles make fights. Well, it's the same in kind of wrestling as well. The opposite sometimes is the best, and I thought it was a brilliant story too. I think Punk was incredible. He was a heel, but it's that classic thing where you can see his viewpoint. It's like, you know, in a lot of things he's right. He said, "Oh, you're making poor choices and this, that, and the other." And you know, technically, Punk should be the one you're cheering, but it's Jeff. So that's my first memories of Punk. So I missed the WWE CW stuff and the kind of middling stuff, and I've seen little bits of Ring of Honor stuff here and there. But yeah, that's my first memory, and I was being a fan ever since.
I think for me, like, that's one of the most underrated feuds in WWE history, in my opinion. CM Punk and Jeff Hardy. I think it was absolutely phenomenal. I think that time period as well, and I don't know whether one follows like this. Maybe the Straight Edge Society was maybe before that, or they maybe overlap a little bit. But like for me, again, one of the most underrated stables in WWE history. Like, he almost had this kind of like Messiah, like culty thing about him. Kind of obviously grew his hair long and his beard long, almost this Jesus look about him. And it was just done so well. And it's like I guess for me, my first memories of CM Punk properly, like I'd seen some of the TNA stuff, maybe the odd match in Ring of Honor, but my first proper introduction to him will have been kind of coming up in ECW, and liked him straight away. But I think it's when I feel he probably was misused for quite a while. Like he cashed in the Money in the Bank, and I felt like they didn't do a lot with him and this, that, and the other. And I feel like it's that point, kind of the feud with Jeff Hardy, and I think the Straight Edge Society, that's where he was. It's almost like they were like, right, we trust you to go with this, and that's where he starts to shine. For me, and I don't know if he'll ever get the opportunity to show it again. I hope he does. One of the best heels in the business. Like, I think he's phenomenal. I mean, David, what about you? Like, is it, again, was it ECW, or were you following Ring of Honor, or?
It's probably ECW when he came in with his. He was doing that on all his promos.
Washing his hands. That's important.
I didn't get that at all, but then watching his matches, I thought he was excellent. Then I sort of, after seeing his ECW stuff, I did try and find some of his earlier stuff, and some good stuff.
I mean, what do you think, Robbie? It seems like, I think for most people, and I don't want to say everybody, because obviously a lot of people will be massive fans of his time in Ring of Honor and stuff. But I think a lot of people, that initial introduction is, as a lot of people like to call it, WWE CW. You know what I mean? And I think ironically, he would have fitted really nicely into the old ECW. More along that, when like the Guerreros and the Jerichos and the Malenkos, the technical stuff. But I think, he certainly could have, a match with him and Rob Van Dam, for example, I think would have been absolutely awesome.
Yeah. Like most news, ECW was first. I think the first match I'd actually watched him in was the new generation against the old generation. Similar to what NXT done when they switched from black and white to 2.0. Feud-wise, the top ones are Jeff Hardy and Rey Mysterio. He come across evil, and I believed he was evil. Like the way he was talking to Dominic, and he was a believable heel. And then the Straight Edge Society was just like, nah, you're just an obnoxious little fucking dick. I'm Straight Edge, means I'm better than you. I kind of felt like they were going that way in AEW, because he actually said that line on Collision. And then the Summer of Punk is what will always stick out for me. To me, the Summer of Punk eclipses all of it, even though the feuds were good. But for me, I was like, is this real? Is what he, has he been given permission to do this? And that's what sticks out for me for his WWE career. His title runs really, bar that last one, didn't really sit right.
I mean, I definitely want to talk about the pipe bomb, and we'll get onto that in a minute. But Kev, what was your first kind of CM Punk experience?
Yeah, it was his ECW days moving on to the main roster, because I was like long hair and a lip ring, and I was the same at that time. I'm like, he's my guy. That's my wrestler. That's my man crush. Yeah, yeah. I'll make sure I do. And I was like, yeah, CM Punk's my guy. And there was just something about him, because it was all the time when it was like Evolution, and I was just getting a bit. I was just sick of it. And then CM Punk came along, and he was like, "This looks like the new guy." Like, and it was just there was something about him that you could tell he was going to be really big. Even when he was just starting out, there was just something different. Like, because I wasn't aware of him being in the indies and stuff. I mean, my knowledge at the time, when it was basically, if you wanted to be a wrestler, you went to WWE and that was it. I wasn't aware of like all these indie stuff. So I didn't realize he had all the experience beforehand. But just when you see someone who's that good, and I mean, his WrestleMania match with The Undertaker, leading up to that as well, when fucking Paul Heyman dressed as Paul Bearer, and him kicking out of the tombstone as well. I think that was really a big thing at WrestleMania. Like, Undertaker even pinned him with his arms like that, and he kicked out, and I think that was probably one of the only few people that's ever done that. Like, because normally when Undertaker pressure like that, it means you're done, and he actually kicked out of it. So, and I really thought he was going to break the streak that night. I thought this is the guy to do it, and it didn't. So that was a bit shit. But yeah, I love him as a heel or a babyface as well. He's really polarizing, I think, but I can get behind him, but he can be like really dastardly, but he can be a proper hero as well. Same as I think Edge. Him and Edge are really good at stuff like that. So yeah,
It is funny. You've got certain wrestlers, haven't you? That it's like, they might be able to do both, but there's one of them. So for me, like, yeah, Triple H could be a great babyface, but he's a heel. Do you know what I mean? Like, well, not anymore. Papa H is absolutely like, but like as back in the day, like he was a great heel. Like Stone Cold could be an awesome heel, but he's your babyface. Do you know what I mean? But then you get some who I think like double pegging for both. I do think Punk's one of them. I do think Bryan Danielson's another. I think he's an awesome heel when he wants to be. Absolutely fantastic. But obviously a lot of his greatest moments as a babyface. I mean, let's talk about the pipe bomb, because I think that's still, you could argue that almost like, whether it's work, whether it's shoot, whatever you want to call it. I feel like the ramifications of that are kind of still going on a little bit. Like I think that, what I loved about it was, I remember quite vividly waking up. Obviously, Raw was something I was dipping in and out of at that point. Do you know what I mean? And to wake up and say, "Oh, CM Punk's been suspended for something he said on Raw," and I was like, "Oh, right, I'm watching this time." I mean, what were your memories of that, Kev? It seems like that's brought something up for you.
yeah. Watching it back now, right? I always thought it was a shoot right up until he calls Triple H a doofus, and I'm like, vocabulary said a doofus. Like, dickhead. You can't say dickhead. Just say doofus instead. It was just. Back, I was like, that just doesn't sound. It's for son-in-law. And I'm like, it's a work. Just one word spoiled it for me.
But I think at the time, as I recall, like, WWE was probably going through a bit of a boring patch, to be honest. I think at that point, obviously Punk was doing awesome things on SmackDown. I think one of the things that really pissed me off around that time, which I think will have only been maybe the year before, was kind of the SummerSlam main nexus against kind of the WWE, and then Super Cena kind of won and he steamrolls through everybody. And like I think John Cena's great, and I've never disliked him like other people have over the years, but it was getting a bit stale and it was getting a bit boring. So for CM Punk to be like, to just kind of really shake things up, and I think that the whole build up to Money in the Bank was just masterfully done. And that main event is probably one of my favorite matches of all time. And it's not for its technical prowess or anything like that. It's just for the drama and the crowd, and everything about it is just pitch perfect. And I remember thinking, thought when they were talking about Punk on his way out, this, that, and the other, me thinking I know better. I'm thinking, yeah, Punk's going to have a paddy, and then that's going to be the last we see of him. But then it didn't work out that way. Do you know what I mean? It worked out very differently. I mean, what are people's memories of the match? Like I say, for me, it's one of the best WWE title matches of all time for the reasons that I've said.
Vince's face, that was the best one.
Vince McMahon.
His face as well. Like, remember that face he pulls?
He's the king of faces, Vince, mind, to be fair.
Yeah.
What were you going to say about blowing the kiss, Robbie?
That's the image that sticks out the most, where he sat on the barricade, blows a kiss, and he's gone. And I genuinely thought, fuck, he's actually gone with the title. That's it. What they're gonna do? I mean, he was back a week later, but
I feel that
little thing, I thought, he's gone. That's it. They've got the title.
But I feel that played really nicely on like the drama of wrestling in the past, that like Ric Flair could turn up in WWF with the real world championship, or Medusa could turn up on WCW and put the women's title in the bin and all this kind of stuff. So like, although there wasn't really, TNA were trying and failing, I think, but like, so it was almost kind of let's make our own drama. And I think, yeah, like again, and this is the great thing about CM Punk, it's the reason that tonight, whatever he does just creates more questions than answers. Do you know what I mean? I think that's what's great about him. I feel there was a bit of a missed opportunity there. Like, I would love to have seen them do something with Ring of Honor, maybe up in Ring of Honor or some other indies with the title as if he's out of contract and stuff. I think that would have been really. That's something like Triple H would probably do now if they did the story in 2023. But nonetheless, it was still a really cool moment. But like I say, I think this is maybe the start of where some of those kind of disagreements with the office come in, because I feel like it's like you've hit the home run, you're running around the bases, but then you decide to go and get the ball and give it to the opposite team, and the person managing that team is Kevin Nash. So like I didn't understand it, and I really like Kevin Nash. Like I didn't get what they did with that at all. I didn't understand where they were going with it. I mean, was that was SummerSlam, wasn't it? So it was just the following month, and then one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, Alberto Del Rio, decides that he's going to cash in his title. So that was sarcasm, in case anyone was wondering. I mean, what were people's memories of that, Peter? We'll go with you. Like, I felt like they set it up so nicely, and then they just royally fucked it up.
It smacked of something got hot that they didn't expect, and they didn't know what to do with it. And I think it seemed to be a lot of that time, even in the past 10 years. If someone kind of gets hot, it seems to be the flavor of the month. It's like, all right then, well, let's knock them down a peg or two to see if they can handle it. And I think it's part of Triple H's mindset, in a sense. Is like, can they take it? Like, can they learn to eat shit and like the taste of it? Like what Vince said to him once upon a time. You're on the cusp, you've done something, or can they handle like that adversity of not getting their own way? So there might have been a little bit of that. Can he really, hack it? But ultimately it cost them money, because there were the SummerSlam was, if you ask, Kevin Nash thing didn't make sense, came out of nowhere. It's like, well, what? It was just a missed opportunity to cash in on that. And I think you're right. If this kind of story would happen now with someone like Hunter at the helm, they might have said, well, I tell you what, we've got to work in relationship with Evolve, so go and show up and Evolve, or we've got somewhat of a work in progress with IWC, or anywhere like that. I think that might have worked a little bit better, but it's just a huge missed opportunity. And I think it was because it was so focused on everything was about Rock and Cena at Mania next year and getting and all that build up. And I think they were worried about the shine getting taken from that. They didn't want anything to overshadow what they believed was the marquee match, when there was potential of something else bubbling underneath.
Out of it comes from, and it's like again, it sounds really shitty to just kind of, but it's not Kevin Nash's fault. He was just the wrong person to use in that situation. It's like almost, I don't know, Kane turned up. Like that for like a modern day equivalent. It's like Kane turning up and costing Cody Rhodes the match at WrestleMania or something like that. It just felt really, he felt like and I'm sure he would probably agree. I think he's quite savvy. Like, if he felt like the product of a bygone era, and there was something you could have done with that with Nash and Punk, but I just didn't feel like it worked. And again, I think that's probably where the start of some of that bad feeling came from. Of course, he got the title back and he went on that awesome run, that we've talked about. But I think, it's interesting, like we say, Rock and Cena was what they were heading to, that a year out. They were determined that was going to be the main event, which is, had they announced it a year out, or was this the second time?
It was a year out.
Yeah. So, even though he was going to be facing Chris Jericho at WrestleMania, he wasn't going to be main eventing, which I imagine probably annoyed both of them, I guess out of interest that we've said, like, do we think that this time round he'll get that main event? Like, do you think that, especially with two nights as well, do we think it's going to be Seth and Punk at WrestleMania with title?
It has to be, doesn't it, really? I mean, WrestleMania is only 4 months, but you can build that up in 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
It just seems the only sensible match. And I do think, like you said at the beginning, there'll be a clause in there, right? I'll be on my best behavior. However, I want that WrestleMania main event.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it will not be night 2, but even night 1, it's still a main event at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
You still the last He's still the match that everyone's waiting for. Yeah, I think he'll get it. If not this year, then next year. Like, apparently, it's like a 3-year contract or something. So they've got 3 years to give him it, really.
I'm wondering if he's been promised to go on the Hall of if he's been offered a 2K showcase. Because I'd buy 2K if I'd play a showcase. Like straight away. Like if they brought.
Has he not had one?
No, WWE 13 had him on the front cover, but it was the Attitude Era as the.
Right. Right. Yeah.
I mean, they're going to do that because I know they've delayed the Bray Wyatt one, but I don't know. I'd love to see him on the front cover of a 2K game, and I'd play it. Be interesting.
Yeah, I think when we're talking about the Mania main event, I don't think I honestly don't think he'll be on one of the main event one either night this year. I really don't. I think what we've seen is there's been WWE have a very clear plan of they probably know what they want to do is night 2 and night 1, and I think night 2 is probably going to be Cody and Roman. Night 1 will probably be whatever other story's hot going into it, and I think that's kind of fair. Have your plans of what you want on, and if it's Becky and Rhea that's getting hot or anything else, or if they do Seth and Punk there, Jesus. Whole show's about I forgot his name. They do Seth and Punk, and then if that has the heat behind it to warrant that one, I think there's a lot going on there. What I can see is getting through this, and I think next year he will have a main event, as in 2025, and it'll be him and Roman, and Punk will go in as champion, and Roman will come away from his year of windmilling and take the title back off him. And the winner might also get Paul Heyman back. I don't know.
Paul Heyman in the shark cage above the ring.
Fucking strong shark cage.
CM Punk, Roman Reigns, and Brock Lesnar.
I think there'll be two rings to contain that. I think and 2 rings.
Heyman and a Paul match. But this also opens the possibility. We're talking about Mania. Is there a realistic possibility that we get the rattlesnake at Mania for Punk? Was that a thing? I want Austin. I know he's done it. I've spoke to him. He's up for it. Trying to make it happen.
Funny as you say that, I actually shared something on the news page where apparently it's already being talked about.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully,
and I think as long as, and to be fair, I loved the Kevin Owens Stone Cold match from last year, but I feel like the build up could have been so much more. You know what I mean? If you know, and I get why they did it because but like for me, if they're gonna do it, you want some promos, you want a really good story to go into that, because they can both tell a hell of a story in the ring, but they can also do it out of it. So if that is what's going to happen, I hope that that's something that they, maybe from the Rumble onwards, they tell that story, rather than it kind of. Because I guess most of that felt that Owens, bless him, to tell that story until the night of WrestleMania. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But I mean, how likely do we think that is? Because I've read those reports too. I mean, what do you think, Kev?
I just can't see Stone Cold, and I can't see it being a very good match because Kevin Owens carried most of that match at Mania. It was because I know I love Stone Cold. Don't get me wrong. I think he's these are all shot, and I think Punk deserves better. Match with Austin, like a 5-minute. That's all it'll be. I think I don't know, and Stone Cold losing, willing to lose. I wouldn't enjoy it because I know obviously Kevin Owens basically jobbed to Stone Cold on that night, and it was a fun match. Obviously, on night 2, when it stunned Vince, where he gave Vince McMahon the. But
I
think
I love it.
It was even worse than the McMahon one.
Have you seen? I know we're going off on a tangent. Have you seen Mick Foley's reaction to that? So one of his kids recorded him watching the Stunner. I'll send it to you later. It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
But yeah, I mean, going back now, I think it's weird. I don't think Stone Cold's got a decent match in his neck and these knee injuries. I think he will struggle. It's like Punk can still put on good matches, so I think opportunity, but we'll see. That's my opinion anyway.
So I think that brings us to kind of, as we start to bring this to a close, to a really nice bit. So I'd kind of mentioned earlier a couple of matches that I think would be good if we're kind of doing a bit of fantasy booking. Like obviously, I think that Seth Rollins and CM Punk is almost like a lock at this point. Like, but thinking, if he's got a contract for the next 3 years, if he's, keeping his hands clean, he's, going to enjoy this ride. Who do you want to see him wrestle? Who are you excited to see face CM Punk? And I'll start with David.
Not sure, to be honest. I think he's there to try and push the younger talent, and hopefully give them the chance. So, it's a tough one because Knight versus Punk would be good, but Knight's not that young, and I'm not. Can I give you an answer? I'm not sure. There's so many youngins coming up that
there's just loads of potential options.
Yeah.
I think the one that sticks out for me, and I said it earlier, I'd love to see CM Punk and Gunter for some reason. I don't know why that is. I just think it would be absolutely awesome. Punk is the face, Gunter is the heel. I think, all the way. I think that could be a really, really good feud. And again, it's just kind of a fresh name. Like, again, I think a match with Owens would be amazing. I think a match with Sami Zayn would be awesome. But again, these are guys who are maybe a bit older, have been in WWE for quite a while. Gunter's a relatively fresh name in that sense. Just to send into the main event. And he's probably the one that I'm not particularly worried about in terms of, if you think about pecking order, because I've got a feeling that he's just going to keep rising. And so I think that a match between them at some point is going to happen, and I think it's going to be absolutely awesome. How about you, Robbie? Who would you like to see him wrestle?
Finn Balor.
Mm-hmm.
Or if he comes up in the time Punk's there, Dragunov.
Yeah, similar thing with Gunter, isn't it?
Yeah, hard hitting match.
That would be cool.
Yeah, those two for me stand out.
What do you think, Peter?
Cody, I want to see that story.
Of course, yeah.
I think you could have a really long feud with that one as opposed to a match. I think you could, have a 3 pay-per-view feud, and you could have a 3 pay-per-view feud leading up to WarGames. Because that feud's just not big enough. It's too big for one ring. It needs 2.
It is. Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
I think they should just go to 2 rings all the time.
Yeah, really should. There's 2 W's in the name, so WWE, 2 rings.
But Cody's one is an overall feud. I think would be good. I thought of Dragunov as well, but I also saw the match he had with Nathan Frazier this week, and I thought Punk might not be quite so keen to take that forearm because my God. But Dragunov would be an interesting one. I think he could do a lot to help Braun Breaker coming up there. That kind of the more deliberate pace of Punk against the power of Breaker. You would have a match hopefully kind of similar to what him and Joe had at All In. I think that type of thing, and I think one I like Pete Dunne.
Of course, yeah. No, that would be awesome.
I think that could be quite, like you say, it's just a different dynamic, not two on the same. So I think those would be Cody's the feud outside of obviously the Raw and Tom we'll get to, but those are like different choices. I think will be really interesting to watch and see what he can do to kind of help these guys and improve and bring up. They're the ones I kind of look forward to be excited about.
And lastly, Kev, how about you? Is there any feuds or matches that you're looking forward to seeing?
Possibly Randy Orton. And that'd be good. Him fighting like all the years later. That'd be good because Randy just doesn't age. He just gets better and better. So
it's like a fine wine.
So
vintage.
I never liked Randy when he was young. But the past couple of years, I've like respected him more, and like he was absolute tank at Survivor Series. But and I reckon that. I'm trying to think like other people who he's not wrestled before. It's like it's difficult. Obviously, if you fought Brock, because it's like, well, just German. That would be it. But
been there, done that as well. I think. To be fair.
Yeah, I can't think of any new names. That, to be honest, I think LA Knight would be a good because that would split the crowd into when it was like The Rock and John Cena, when it was like split. That would be a good indicator of who like the fans were for, especially if they were both babyface as well. That would be a really like they shook hands afterwards and stuff. But either Randy Orton or LA Knight for me.
Cool. So I mean, as we bring this to a close, like, as you know, because I think it's worthwhile as maybe going over Wrestle Profit a little bit before we wind things up. But yeah, I mean, overall, it seems like we're all pretty excited to see him back. It's like we say, this is the joy of being a wrestling fan and stuff. You know, yeah. What do we think happens next? Do you know what I mean? Is it kind of a smooth ride to WrestleMania, or do you think we get some trademark CM Punk bumps along the way?
Well, for him not shit himself on SmackDown like he did before.
I'm gonna say I'd love to see AJ Lee come back. You know, hopefully that's something.
I like that in the promo when he said it was said the pops you got as well.
Yeah,
that made me think she's coming back. That he's name dropped her.
I hope so. I really do. You know, like I say, I'm sure we'll talk about her at some point. You know, I feel like her story, like if you've read her book's fascinating, but like her story in WWE and NXT is pretty damn interesting as well. And mental health and all this kind of stuff. It's really, really good.
I mean, she had her own pipe bomb
against
the Bellas.
Yeah.
So obviously CM Punk's been teaching her.
But yeah, we'll see. I mean, what do you think, David? Do you think that Punk is, like I say, he seems very happy to be there. The promo on Raw was very uncharacteristically uneventful. Do you think that's going to be the case for long, or?
I think he said it at the end of the promo. He's not there to make friends. He's there to make money, and I think that's what's going to happen. So. I think you'll be a good boy.
See, I took that as a little dig at Tony Khan. Because Tony Khan's there to make friends, not money. That's the way. That was my take on it, anyway.
Do we have?
But I guess that even I'd said it was kind of an uneventful promo, but we're still talking about kind of what did he mean by that? So even then, when he's maybe not necessarily not trying, but when it's a bit more restrained, even then we're asking questions. Do you know what I mean? So it just shows the talent he's got, to get us all worked up and asking questions and all that stuff.
Yeah, I think just got a kind of lot of he's been bashed quite a lot for that. Don't know what's he going to say, but I think when you well, at the end of the day, regardless of NDAs or anything, number one's not going to mention number two. It's not the kind of he said he's home after all he said, and I was like, think of it as a business, and if you think of it, with someone, and it kind of ends, and you think you go and you maybe think it's great, but it doesn't work out for whatever reason, and then you realize, well, actually, hang on, and in that time apart, you've grown, the other person. Oh, that was, especially when he Survivor Series in the way he's kind of pounding the floor and it's with his fist, being a somewhat a level of catharsis for him. Do you know what, kind of like, you can't really get that monkey off you, exercise that demon by still pouring gasoline on the fire. You've got to go and face it head on. If it just seems there's been a bit of catharsis for him, maybe I'm home thing's all about. It's like, it's catharsis. Like,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, yeah, I mean, to be fair, we'd love to hear people's thoughts on CM Punk as well. So, as always, feel free to, comment below if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, or kind of, you can follow us, either our page on Mark Side of the Ring, or our group, Mark Side of the Ring, for all, obviously all the latest WWE, AEW wrestling news. And yeah, just let us know what you think about CM Punk's return. Just a bit of time to go through Wrestle Profit, and just kind of talk about, because apart from CM Punk returning, there was a whole pay-per-view before that we've not really touched on at all. So we'll just have a bit of a look. And again, there's only 5 matches, so it shouldn't take very long, but it should show us a little bit kind of where we are with things. For those who maybe don't watch the show regularly, obviously we've been predicting since, was the first one? Was it Wrestle Dream was the first one? Let's have a look. It was Wrestle Dream. So we've been predicting kind of AEW and WWE events since then, running all the way to WrestleMania. And as I've said, I've been teasing for a couple of months now that it's, the prize is worthy of a champion. And of course, we will get there, because there is a prize for whoever does this the most. If it hadn't been for Pepsi Phil coming back right at the end, I would have had a 3 pay-per-view streak of getting every single one right. Now, I still got all the matches right, but it was the 5-pointer that I didn't. So, Pepsi Phil has broken my streak. He may not have broke Taker's, but he broke mine. So let's dive into this a little bit. Now, one thing I will say, obviously, when we predicted this, it was Carlito versus Santos Escobar. Obviously, there was an angle on SmackDown, and it was Dragon Lee against Santos Escobar. Now, I think we were all so sure that it was going to be Escobar. I didn't change that. Like, I didn't reach out to anyone. Is there anyone who maybe felt that, by that, did that change? Did that sway at all? Like, I'll not change it on here, obviously, but did anyone feel when the match got changed? Did you think, oh yeah, it's going to be Dragon Lee, or were you still quite comfortable with your pick that it was going to be Escobar?
I was
still
confident to be Escobar.
Yeah,
just with a heel turn.
Yeah. I mean, what do we think about his new presentation? Like, because again, he's someone, like he's not really in the kindest possible way. He's not someone I've paid massive attention to kind of over the last couple of years, but he seems to be coming into his own a little bit with this heel turn. I mean, how do people feel about the match, and how do people feel about kind of this new era for Santos Escobar?
The match was all right. But the character he's now, I love it. He's dressing like a heel, acting like a heel, looks like a heel, and he is quite easy to dislike. And I'm assuming now they're removing him as far away as possible from Wild and whatever the other one's called. So I'm assuming he's going to get a new stable, but I really, really like. I'm enjoying it.
It was his promo on SmackDown where he said something. The Rey Mysterio, like, I hope they have to amputate your leg, and I was like, that is like dastardly is out. Like, I was like, that's pretty dark. So I enjoyed that. So that it made me kind of think, like, as the best heel turns are justified, maybe he has been in people's shadow for a while, and maybe this is him being like, right, this is me, and let's take the moment and let's use it. I mean, Peter, what did you think of the match?
I enjoyed it. Yeah, it was solid fun for Dragon Lee, given what we've kind of seen from him in NXT and obviously on these last couple of weeks on the main roster. But the purpose was to establish him as that heel moving forward. And Dragon Lee could have got a little bit more to help him shine as well, but it did, which was give Escobar that first win. The route he's going on, and for that sense, it did the job down in NXT, and I think he's going to, the more confidence he gets, I think he's going to be a bit of a sleeper heel. He's going to take a lot of people by surprise now.
I think it's
just
go for it.
I only just realized a couple of days ago he was in AEW. It's Rush's brother. And they've done an angle in AEW where they kicked him out the group. Yeah. And he's got an NXT. So I'm thinking now at WWE picking up these released NXT stars to show AEW, look, this is what you had. This is what you've now wasted.
Interesting. And again, like I say, he's, this is, I think the heel turn's done the world for him. And obviously we all thought he was going to win. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do. I feel like obviously the US title's sort of taken up at the moment with Logan Paul, and that'll be the case, I reckon, until at least WrestleMania. But maybe sometime next year, I think that would be a good spot for him. You know what I mean? Obviously a good feud for the US title. I think that would be cool. I feel like it was a pay-per-view that was probably quite predictable in a lot of ways. As you can see, a lot of green on our screen. Rhea Ripley versus Zoe Stark and Gunther versus The Miz. I'm going to kind of lump them together a little bit because they were very, I think, it was kind of telegraphed what was going to happen with those. I did enjoy both matches, particularly Gunther versus The Miz. Who was it who posted something about Rhea Ripley's entrance? Someone had... Hey, that made us laugh. It did. Because then I was like, because I had to say that before I saw the event, and I was like, right, so that's something to watch out for then. Because my wife is obsessed with her too, so I'm allowed to look, so it's totally fine. But I mean, what did we? Like I say, it's sometimes predictable doesn't necessarily mean bad. Like I feel Ripley and Gunther, like I think I certainly would have been kicking off massively if we were talking about either of them losing their titles at Survivor Series. I think they were the right decisions to do. And I think the Gunther Miz match, particularly, it wasn't, I think Gunther, I'm trying to think of a nice way to put this because it's not that it was a bad match, but I think Gunther had to kind of wrestle down a little bit because Miz is very WWE style, very basic, which is great and has served him really well and he wrestles really safe. So I think Gunther had to come down to that level a little bit, but it was still a good match and it was still fun. And again, I think Zoe Stark had a canny showing against Rhea Ripley. But I think, again, there was no doubt from either of us, from any of us rather, who was going to win those matches.
Just watching, like, just an observation, but the Miz's entrance looks so dated now. I think he needs to change his entrance, like with his ring attire. It's still in 2006, and I'm like, it just doesn't match like what a WWE is nowadays. It's like, move on. I mean, I enjoyed the match. It's like when he like the desperation when he kicks him, when he does the low blow and stuff. That was really good storytelling. But yeah, it's a shame that I was put off by. Really annoyed me that you could see the other ring when they were wrestling. But mind you, I didn't have that issue with Rhea Ripley. Focused on that for some reason, but
right.
Yeah. But yeah.
Brilliant. Speaking of the WarGames matches, so I know how much you struggle when there's two rings, Kev. Like,
yeah.
So, like, did you enjoy the matches? Were you seething at the use of the two rings? Did you feel that they adequately used the space?
I like all the DDTs at once. That was fucking class. when he was commanding it as well, that was good. And
Mhm.
well, this is me. Like I was wrong, but I didn't realize that when everyone's in the ring, so basically just it's a beatdown before comes in the ring. So that was quite cool. I didn't realize that.
Mm.
That was I was like, oh, all right, yeah, that makes sense. So, but
I feel like just looking at your background, like the shadow that's coming into your room, it looks a bit like you're in the elimination chamber.
no. I lose to my wife now.
Hey. But no, I think I enjoyed both matches. I mean, the obviously the Cody, Team Cody versus Judgment Day one was what I expected. But again, I think you could say that for the pay per view. Most of it was, apart from the very ending, of course, would be what was expected. But I don't think that was a bad thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think obviously at this point, usually this time of year, WWE gets a little bit stale. They kind of go on autopilot in the run up to the Rumble, and I feel like with the pay per views, I don't think they've done that. I think they've put some really good shows on towards the back end of the year. I guess one thing that's interesting is I was the only one who thought that Bianca Belair's team would win the WarGames match. It didn't quite go the way I'd thought. I thought that the damage control split might have happened there and then, but nonetheless, they didn't win the match. I mean, what did we think of the women's match? Did that result take you guys by surprise? That I think it told the story that we all thought it would. That Bailey's on the outs. I think is basically the story they're telling.
The trash can.
Because to me, it didn't make sense. Like a makeshift team is essentially an established team. I still think they could have kicked Bailey out even with a win. I mean, I think Kev was just about mentioning it there. The Io Sky trash can spot was quite cool.
Yeah,
I enjoyed that, especially the way she got the trash can up to the top of the cage, like a little pulley system.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just like, for me. Sorry, go for it, Peter.
I was going to say, I was surprised at you because I thought obviously the new damage control certainly same as S give. I think the in a bullet for all of them, like taking the finisher from every gives that when the split happens is the more because you're a bunch of twats rather than having any beat the piss out of like 4 different people like TOD, the natural selection actually took the bullet for everyone, and then it's like, well, that's they feel justified because they're just mean heel. Helps with the babyface thing a little bit, just like so. I think being done quite well actually. A little bit of that slow build to do that babyface thing for it.
I'm just really, really pleased to see Kairi Sane back. I think I said that last time. Like, when she returned it, when she returned in Saudi. Like, I'm just so pleased to see her back. It blows my mind they've re-signed Nia Jax, but that's another thing altogether. Like, I'm not wishing someone out of a job, but like, I don't get that signing. But Kairi Sane, I totally do. And already. Obviously I love the pirate gimmick and stuff. I think it's awesome, but already they're doing something totally different with her. Almost like a fresh coat of paint, all that stuff. And, I'm looking forward to seeing the role that she plays in this story. Like, I think the damage control story is quite interesting. I think the way it's going to play out. Again, is it going to be Asuka? Is it going to be Io? Is it going to be Kairi who's eventually facing her? Where does Dakota Kai fit in all of this? To be fair, and again, like I do like Bailey. I know it's you, David. I know last time I did this, it was totally not the case. But you are a Bailey fan, aren't you?
Yeah, definitely.
Yes. I think for me, like, it's not that I'm not a Bailey fan. I think she's awesome, but the other 4 in damage control, like I think they're all fantastic. Like, I think they're absolutely great, and even from kind of their NXT days, like. I've really, really enjoyed watching them. So it's great to see them be part of this big story with someone as important to WWE as Bailey, and to kind of see this play out, I think is really cool. So I'm interested to see kind of what happens with it over the next few months. But I mean, overall, again, predictable is not always bad. It seems like, I mean, what did you guys think? Did you enjoy Survivor Series, or did that predictability, apart from Punk, kind of get in the way of it?
I thought it was a solid show.
For me.
It is.
Yes.
Even though
I think sometimes
I think R-Truth's return was, but that was a bit weird.
I'm loving these cheesy adverts on the shows at the minute. Like they're so funny. Apart from the
It's just
propaganda one about Saudi Air.
Yeah, it's out of
They're not crisps, they're ruffles.
yeah. I mean, not arguing they were crisp English or Australian. I couldn't tell.
Yeah, they're English.
Pretty deadly.
Yeah.
Australian.
I'm sure they're English.
They're English? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, let's have a look.
Oh, I'll have to look at this.
I'll be pleased. I don't know why it makes any difference what the nationality is, but
Sure for Aussie
for
chips
me.
or crisps. I'm not sure if this
pretty deadly WWE.
chips or crisps.
Nah.
British. Yeah, they're British.
Hands up, I'm wrong. You're totally right. Elton Prince and Kit Wilson are British. I do like Pretty Deadly. I think they're awesome.
They're growing on us.
Got a lot of time for them. But if we see in terms of wrestle profits, so the way we do it obviously for the show, and then we've got kind of the running totals as well. So I was leading, as you can see, after Full Gear. Only just mind, Kev was.
Oh, Jesus.
But you can see where we were. So the 5-pointer, I think, was the all important here. So I got 7 points, but it was still kind of second lowest because I got the prediction wrong. The guys who got the prediction right were the ones who've run away with this. So Robbie has 6, David has 6, I've got 7, Peter and Kev both with 11. So what that does to the scores is it brings things in very tight indeed. So David's on 47. We've got Robbie's dropped down to 54. Peter's on 58. I'm on 60, and Kev is currently the leader with 62. So that's where we are at the moment. Again, plenty more time to go between now and WrestleMania. And don't forget, we're also including NXT events in this as well. The deadline is this Saturday. The reason I haven't brought it is 1, because I knew we wanted to talk about Punk, but 2, because some of the participants in what is it, kind of the Iron Challenge, Iron Man Challenge? Iron Survivor Challenge. I watched the matches last year and they were quite good, actually. I quite enjoyed them. Some cool elements that can come into it. So a couple of the participants still haven't been announced for those matches. So I thought what we'll probably do is that we'll put our picks up on social media so people know what we're choosing, and then we'll break that show down next week. And there's only 4 matches announced so far, which might be it, to be honest, for an NXT show. And we'll have to think of a question, a 5-pointer for that. But I do enjoy NXT, but I probably don't watch it as closely as the other 2. I tend to watch the kind of the event, the big events more. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. I mean, is anyone watching NXT a bit closer? I mean, I know I'd like to. It's finding the time with so much wrestling.
I want to start watching it again.
Last pay-per-view. Since the last pay-per-view, I've not religiously. It's normally if I've got nothing else to watch, and I remember it's been on. That's the only reason why I watch it, really. But it's a decent show, considering what 2.0 started as. Obviously, this is all the performance center students coming through now. I enjoy it.
And if Gigi Dolan's on, I will watch it.
I stopped watching it after Velveteen Dream because I was his number 1 fan, and then it was like, you're gonna love him, like, and then it turned out all those other things. But I was like really big on him, and then it just I just lost interest in it. I was like, I'm not having me up.
I think really harmed the last bastion of it. I think it's they had even though Dynamite still had no fans, these players, it just the atmosphere didn't make it feel kind of sanitized. You really connect to it a little bit more, whereas stuck in that performance center. And I think it really harmed it a little bit. And then they've really kind of hit the stride. A lot of those young talents that were there at the start of 2.0 blossomed so much. Trick Williams, Carmelo Hayes, straight away. And then obviously some that there were. You know, obviously we talked about Tiffany Stratton not that long ago. So it was another one that's got a lot of talent. So again, like Robbie, not religiously, I'll catch as many highlights as I can on the network. So I'll catch the highlights quick as I can. If there's been a big match, I'll go and watch it.
Like I say, I'm looking forward to watching it. What were you going to say, Kev?
I did see some. Was during the pandemic, I didn't see when Triple H, when he was water, that was spit it out and someone grabbed it off him. And I'm like, you can't do that. He was like,
Stood there like,
like I saw. I've not seen that before. That was fucking hilarious.
I'll have to have a look at that. I like, not that it was NXT, but I think it was like the first SmackDown or something where like Triple H was like on commentary and on camera and all. Like that was a really fun episode. I feel like WWE, it was hard watching wrestling in that time just without the crowd. It's really interesting because Jerry Lawler had always said like, if you mute wrestling, it's really hard to watch without commentary. I'm sure it was Jerry Lawler that had said it, and that's true. But I think also just not having a crowd, like the odd empty arena match is fine, but you don't want to hear of them. So
it is true though.
But yeah,
it's like when you go to a wrestling match. Every time you watch wrestling live and there's no commentators, it's such a surreal experience.
it's because you
don't
don't
know how to judge it. Like, really weird.
But yeah, I think that's probably all we've got time for this week on Mark's side of the ring. But like I say, we'll be talking about NXT Deadline next time, and I'm sure that the wrestling world will cough up some stuff for us to talk about. If not, and Robbie's been hiding this for a few weeks now, you've got what was it, the Wheel of Subjects?
Yeah.
The Wheel of Subjects. Yeah. See? So even if like absolutely nothing happens between now and the next time, we've got the Wheel of Subjects, so we're totally fine. But that's it for today. Thank you very much for joining us. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Cheers.
Bye.
See you later.